and give a little framing. You've heard this many times if you've heard us speak from the Center for Behavior and the Environment, but at their core, environmental solutions or environmental challenges are behavioral challenges. That means someone somewhere needs to be doing something differently, whether that's fishers or farmers or community leaders or government leaders. Someone somewhere needs to be doing something differently in order to drive change in the sorts of ways that we want to see. And so to make that happen, we know that if the challenges are behavioral challenges, then we need behavioral solutions. And so how might we use behavioral science to do so? So a little bit quickly, I'm coming to you from RARE Center for Behavior and the Environment. RARE is an international nonprofit focused on inspiring change so people in nature thrive, and we do that through behavior change science. So we've run more than 500 different campaigns in over 60 countries around the world. We've done a lot of research and done some meta-analyses on the impacts of our programs and found that on average, these types of interventions that we've run have increased adoption by 18 percentage points. That is comparative and even better than a lot of different public health programs that we've seen around the world that I can talk more about at some point. And at our center, specifically within RARE, we focus on equipping practitioners worldwide with behavioral science and behavior design so that they can achieve breakthrough solutions and impacts in the work that they do. So a little bit about behavioral change and behavioral science. You probably heard about this before, but just really quick refresher on the fact that when we make decisions, there's different ways that we make decisions. On the one hand, it's very calculated, very thoughtful, very intentional, where we weigh costs and benefits and return on investment and maximize for a solution. On the other hand, we can have these very quick, automatic, instinctive decisions, sometimes emotional. And that's one way we make decisions. And over the course of our day, we'll make thousands and thousands of decisions, and they'll fall all over the spectrum, some in one hand, some on the other. And the challenge, though, is that when we start looking at environmental solutions, traditionally environmental solutions have only used one end of the spectrum in their design of solutions. So we've thought about the very rational material incentives. If we just pay them or fine them, that will encourage them to stop. If we just give them a rule, say you shouldn't do this or you can't do this, that will make them to stop. Or if we just gave them the information, we told them how big the plastic island is or how many degrees the world is warming, that would motivate change. The reality is, though, that these aren't always the case. These don't always motivate change, and that's because they're only on one end of the spectrum. And so what we do at the center is think more about how can we be holistic. So sometimes when we have material incentives, they can backfire or crowd out other motivators. Rules, they need enforcement, and information alone, as I mentioned, is not always the way towards lasting change, and it's not always sufficient to even driving change on its own. So at the center, we think about this other end of the spectrum, and we think about these other three levers. One, we can be more emotional than rational, and so how can emotions drive us to act, and how can we leverage those in our programs, in our environmental programs? Two, with social influences, we care what people think about us. We take our lead from others. We like to feel part of a group. We want people to like us and to cooperate within a peer group. And so our social influences and incentives really matter. And finally, this thing called choice architecture, which is the context and timing of our decision making, matters a lot. And so how we think about structuring the decision-making environment to encourage people to make the kinds of choices we want, while still preserving the element of choice for those individuals. So I'm just going to dive in to a couple of the levers. The first, and some examples of the science behind it. This is just very quick and it's fun, but just a way to get people to understand what we're doing here. The first is this concept of emotional appeals. So I'm using this example. It's coming out of a study. We at the center, we love sweets. Hopefully you do too, and you'll enjoy this example. There was a study where they had chocolate cake. They put people into 3 rooms. In one room, they had a bunch of people around a table, and they said, imagine how proud you will feel if you resist eating this cake. Imagine how good it'll be, all the calories, how you'll have worked towards your goal. Imagine how that will feel. And they walked out of the room. The second group, they said, Imagine how much shame you will feel, how guilty. You will have ruined your exercise goals. You will have ruined all these different health objectives that you've had. Imagine how guilty you will feel if you eat this cake. And then they left. And then the third group, they did nothing. And then they came back later and measured how much cake was eaten among these three groups. Now, the science shows, and you will not be super surprised to see this, that there were very big differences between the groups. And what they did when they researched is they actually found that the messages of pride were most impactful in motivating change, telling people that the positive feelings of pride would really influence change. Now, what gets really interesting is when you go to the next steps. Shame only motivated the percent of people that completely resisted eating cake. It was about 10.5%. So in fact, saying nothing at all was even more impactful than a shame or fear-based message. And so that's really valuable knowledge for us as environmentalists as we think about traditionally how we frame messaging to motivate people and think about the kinds of emotions that we have. And there was a study by a number of scientists who looked at how this translated pride and guilt to pro-environmental decision making and found very similar things. They found that pride was a more impactful motivator than guilt and was even more so across lots of different types of scenarios. So that was quick. The next one that I want to go through is social influences. So this concept of how the behavior and beliefs and expectations of others really drive our own actions within our normative peer groups. So this is another study about food, super interesting. It comes from the Stanford University in the United States, and they went to a cafe and they talked to people in line. They wanted to motivate people to eat more plant-rich diets or a little bit less meat in their diet. So they waited in line and they gave people a coupon, and at the end of their line, they could use the coupon numbers to see and measure how many people ate meat versus not meat, and they gave two messages to the people in line. The first message was a static norm. They said 30% of Americans make an effort to limit their meat consumption. The next one they said in a different place was, over the last 5 years, 30% of Americans have started to eat less meat in their diets. And what that has done, and you can see the slight difference that exists here, one is a static norm. People are making an effort or they're not. The second, the dynamic norm, is they've started to. That doesn't mean that they've really done it yet. They're in motion of making that change. And why dynamic norms are so valuable is that they can demonstrate and help communicate a shift when we want people to go in one direction, or we want people to start moving in one direction without feeling that they're in the out group or they've been left behind. And when you look at the results, you can see how effective the dynamic norm was in sort of motivating people in hearing that, oh, our herd, my peer group, my group has started to move in this direction, and I think I will consider doing that as well. The final example that we have is this choice architecture, which is the context and timing of our decision-making environment. Now, in the environmental sector, we often like to motivate people by saying 50 ways you can make your life greener. We like to give people these long lists because we think that, if we tell them lots of different options, they will be able to go through and pick which ones make the most sense for them. So we give them lots of options in hopes that that means that they will choose an intervention that we think will be that they will be able to do. But in reality, having too many options can cause a sort of decision paralysis. We don't know which to choose, so we choose none, which is the opposite of what we want to happen. And so we did this another study. I mentioned that we like food at the center, so I'm going with another example here, and that's from a grocery store or a supermarket, where they set up a tasting station with jam. Some people call it jelly or preserves, but like these fruit spreads that were at a table, and they offered 6 different types, and then they encouraged people to taste, and then they gave coupons for people to go on and purchase whichever flavor they preferred. Now, in one scenario, 40% of people stopped for a taste, and 30% went on to purchase. So pretty good. In the second scenario, they offered 24 different types of jam. I'm not sure where you find 24 different types of flavors of these preserves, but they did. And interestingly, 60% of people stopped for a taste. So they had so many out there, lots of people stopped for a taste. But here's where it really falls apart. Only 3% purchased the preserves. And so if your desired behavior was to stop for a taste, then that would have been effective. But if your desired behavior was really the end state of purchasing, you have decreased quite substantially what you wanted people to do simply by offering too much choice. And so as we're designing environmental solutions, thinking about what are the most impactful behaviors, what are the real things we want to ask people to do, and focusing on that and making our messages clear so that people know and are able to choose from a limited set versus the entire realm of possibilities is really critical into being effective in motivating change. So there's all sorts of different levers. This is a very complicated slide. I would encourage you to visit behavior.rare.org because we have all of these different levers in more detail and are constantly producing additional resources to help better understand the science and the strategies that you can use in motivating behavior change. Now, the next thing that I want to touch really quickly is before we introduce some of the great work that's happening on the ground by organizations actually applying behavior-centered design is introduce this concept of behavior-centered design. Behavior-centered design means that you can't just take every single one of those levers I mentioned and throw them at any problem and think that it'll be effective in driving a solution. What you really need to do is be intentional and strategic about which lever you're going to use at which time, and the behavior-centered design process helps you identify which one to use and how to use it and where. And so there's several steps here that exist. The first is framing the problem, understanding what do you want your audience to do. Very specifically, what is the behavior and who do you want to do it and where. The second is empathizing, understanding what is their experience. And it's not what your experience is of this challenge, and it's also not what you think their experience is, but it's also truly understanding from their perspective what is their experience. Then mapping what you learn in the research with behavioral science, understanding what principles and levers exist. Then it's ideating what strategies you can use, applying those levers and creating hypotheses around how do you tackle and use behavioral science effectively in driving the change, prototyping, testing, developing small-scale interventions, figuring out whether it works, and then in the large scale, launching it and taking it to a broader audience and expanding your intervention. So these are the very intentional steps. And what you're going to hear today is from two different organizations who very effectively applied behavior-centered design over the last year in like 6 months. They really moved quickly on this stuff. But in using this stepped approach to successfully tackling different waste-related challenges. So I want to introduce them quickly. They came to us through a project called the BE.Innovative Challenge. This was in partnership with the Center for Behavior and the Environment and the Prevent Waste Alliance. We joined together to identify new behavioral science solutions and design thinking to put solutions in place around the circular economy. So at the start of last year, all members in the Prevent Waste Alliance, they were given access to RARE's self-paced course on behavior-centered design for the environment. And then we allowed members to go through the 8 steps of the behavior-centered design process, learn about the levers, and start conducting research and data and understanding. And so that's what part of these organizations that you're going to hear from today have done. After completing this initial course, what we did is we had people propose projects to be, oops, I'm sorry, I forgot to advance the slides. They participated in the course, came up with proposed projects where they applied these principles and identified which specific waste challenge they wanted to tackle. We had a lot of really, really strong applicants. And then from this list, we identified 5 finalist organizations who were selected to then attend some really in-depth, high-intensity trainings and workshops and really focused on capacity building with experts from our B-Center team. So then we went through this whole process. The 2 teams kind of really dug in and They submitted all reports. All 10 teams submitted reports, and 2 came to the top, where we saw a lot of promising solutions through the process. But I'm really excited to introduce 2 organizations that won additional support to continue on in their adventures of behavior-centered design. And they're going to talk to you a little bit more about their process, what they did, what they accomplished, and where they're going to go from here. So the first organization that I want to introduce is Common Seas from Indonesia to speak a little bit more about the great work that they've done.
Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Celia Shura from Common Seas Indonesia. Today we're gonna talk more about what we learned from our behavior-centered design from REL. And let me introduce my organization first. We are Common Seas. We have the very big mission we believe in healthy seas, rivers, and for all. So means for our planet and our people. But in Indonesia, actually we are focusing to prevent the single-use diapers thrown into the Brantas rivers. So this is our mission. With the right investment, we will achieve we will deliver like 5 outcomes for you. Like prevented 150 million single-use diapers in 5 years, and also 200 jobs for the people who most needed, like local women and disadvantaged people. And we want to create like 25 million economic benefit for our region by delivering 600,000 reusable diapers and provided the plastic pollution education through these reusable diapers. And we will achieve sustainable position after 7 years. Means Common Seas Indonesia will be independently work for Brantas River and ocean in Indonesia. So we started from the problems. That's what we learned from the Behavior Change Center from REL. So what is the problem right now? So the Brantas actually is very polluted, and because it has like 17 megacities and 17 million people living along the Brantas rivers. They have very lack access to the waste collection. And the funny thing is the 50% of plastic waste found in the Brantas rivers is single-use diapers. If you look at the pictures, that's all the single-use diapers in the plastic bags that I took by myself. This picture all in the Brantas rivers and across to our main water source. And that's why we found like 1.5 million single-use diapers thrown into the rivers every day. If you times 365 days, it means like we will find 500,000 million single-use diapers enters the rivers in East Java. Only one river, not all rivers in Indonesia. So that's why our mission is very important, I think, for us, for all people here, and for our planet. Next. So I think everyone here, we all agree it doesn't have to be this way, right? So we cannot do anything with the single-use diapers because they are not recyclable products. No one wants to collect them. That's why in our program we produce the reusable diapers that produced by the local women and disadvantaged people, and we also create a job for them. But our program will support the long-term behavior change using the commerce and education to connect the community to the healthier rivers. Let's thanks to REL and Prevent Waste Alliance. This is how our target behavior that we already identify in our 6 months. So our target behavior is the families with the babies up to 3 years old who live in the close to the rivers and without waste management. Our expectation is to reduce more than 50% the number of single-use diapers they use and stop disposing their waste in the waterways. And our core actors, we also including the healthcare professional, means the doctor, midwife, because we know that they are the one who close with the mummies, and also the government and single-use diapers producers. But if you look at our picture, beside of our picture, actually we are not targeted the media at that time, but the media got the attention from our events, and they started to to come to our events and to spread the news about how Caucasus in their mission to switch from single-use diapers to reusable diapers. So media also learn from our event here. Next. So this is, let's start from audience insight that we already found. So the cost of the solution is quite funny actually, because these diapers is both the main barriers but also drivers. So even though the mother believes the baby health is more important, but if they cannot afford the solution, so they cannot act. And the second one is the convenience in washing and using. So this part also has a big influence from people choosing from single-use diapers to reusable diapers. And the third, people who have heard about reusable diapers are more willing to try them. So it means that the good first experience is needed. And then for the low-income people, they are more social, so they can be influenced to other other mothers in their decision. Next. This is our solution. So actually we have two hypotheses. If I change the excess and upfront cost of the reusable diapers, then they will reduce the use of single-use diapers. And second, if I change the ease and comfort of using using reusable diapers, then they will reduce the use of single-use diapers. These two hypotheses we combine become one piloted solution. So this is our solution. We give them free 3 packs of reusable diaper testers with easy to use model and easy to wash like this one. And then we combine them with the informative events on how about the diaper rest with the pediatrician, and participants that time also get the discount voucher, so they can discount voucher but with the purchase term. So we don't give them free, but we try to create the behavior change here. So we give the purchase term here. So this is our pilot solution. Next. So the science behind the solution, actually we use 4 levels of behavior change. First, the informations, and second, materials incentive. Third, the emotional appeal, and the fourth is social influence. So if you look at this screens, as what I said before, economic is the both main driver and barrier from switching to a more sustainable alternative. Here we provide like a free trial and a discount voucher along with the purchase term. So we letting them know that they can save even money by using it. So we use these two behavior change driver, informative and material incentive here. And second, easy to use is important barrier to tackle as people think about this. Even if we introduce the good quality diapers, so people will willing to use these diapers. That's why we use the material incentive behavior change lever. And the third one, health is the most important for mothers during our survey. That's why we bring the gynecologists and also the pediatrician to bring more influence when talking about this subject, about the health, how the mummies can give the best health to the babies. Here we use the informative behavior change levers and also the emotional appeal, because the mom is really close with the doctors and the midwife. If I'm the one who come, maybe they don't believe because I'm the seller. Okay, next. So the fourth one is the informative short video. Here we use the informative and what is that? Social influence behavior change levers. So in our video, we use the mothers as the actors to say to let them know that the reusable diapers is very easy to use, to wash. So this can make other mummies to have a right decision to switch the single-use to reusable diapers. Next. Now, this really funny result. In 1 week, we piloting our projects. So we already reached like 75 mothers with the 90% still active use the reusable diapers that we gave to them. And 44% mentioned that saving is as a reason to continue, because when they use, they found they don't need to buy the single-use diapers anymore, because in our low-income people target, they always buy the single-use diapers daily. So once we give these reusable diapers, they feel it that they will have a saving from here. And 45 mothers during our survey said that they want to buy another extra. And at least 2 people already during our pilot, only 1 week pilot, buying the extra reusable diapers. And it resulted like $251 saving for the families. And we also reduced the number of single-use diapers because they only have three testers. So here it come up with the reduction 1.2 pieces single-use diapers. But with the 75 mothers, it become like 1,938 single-use diapers avoided to the environment. And we found also the 0 single-use diapers thrown into the rivers during our pilot. Next. So here I want to take the opportunity also to promote our pilot project, or because we really want to scale this project, because we found we already have the right solution. So I think investors can have peace of mind if they come to us, and because we have a proven solution and successful pilot. But we also have demand for growth, because like in Indonesia, every year 4.5 million babies born. Next. And how you can help? Next. Sorry. So here, maybe I just give you a graphic chart, a quick graphic chart to let you know that only with 500,000 USD, we can reach the number of babies. You can look at here, and we can prevent the single-use diapers thrown into the rivers. You can see the numbers. And the most important thing is we will give the 10 times economic benefit if we compare with the investment. Next. This is the total. So you can see in 5 years, we can avoid it like 146 million single-use diapers thrown into the rivers. And you can see the blue colors, we will bring 10 times economic benefit for the region. This calculated from the promoter's incentive, means the doctor, the midwife, the carers that work with us, of course, they will get the material incentive from that. And also from the saving from the mummies. Also when we create a job for the people. Next. So here we would love to hear from you. You can contact me here if you are interested to know more about us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Celia and Common Seas. That is such an interesting and exciting solution, particularly I think how you thought about the levers and behavior change and really infused those into your program to identify the most effective means of driving change and adoption of the diaper. So I next want to turn it over to my colleagues at CENN. I am going to stop sharing my screen so that they can share their slides directly. So I will do that. Please bear with us as we make this switch, but I will turn it over to my colleagues at CENN, who can talk about a very different type of solution, but also using behavior-centered design to motivate change.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Katie. My name is Nana. I'm here today with my colleague Angela, and we represent organization CENN, which is an environmental organization based in Georgia, working in the South Caucasus to ensure that we establish sustainable practices. And before I move on to talk about our behavior-centered design in our project, I shortly want to introduce our organization and what we do in terms of waste management. Our mission is to work with communities, governments, and businesses across the South Caucasus to create sustainable solutions for a healthy environment. We have several thematic directions, such as climate change, environment and energy. We work on agriculture, rural development, economic growth, democracy and good governance, education and youth, as well as public health and well-being. We have quite a wide spectrum of what we work on, and we do try to find synergies as much as possible because they're very interlinked and interconnected. In terms of waste management, we've been working in this direction for a long time. And we've been working on policy level in terms of policy advocacy, but also helping the governments to implement policy. We also work in capacity building for key actors in the sector, creating networks, and always try to incorporate our private sector into everything that we do. We have piloted some recycling programs in Georgia. There is no unified recycling infrastructure as of yet in Georgia, but we have had some piloting successful examples. And of course, nothing can be done without education and working with the public and consumers, as we did within this project. Some of the highlights that I would like to mention that we've worked in waste management is establishment of Waste Management Association, unifying voices and companies working in the recycling sector. We also last year developed the National Plastic Waste Prevention Program, which is looking at the entire plastic value chain and looking at investments necessary to establish a sustainable value chain, and also looking at things like export, import, re-exports, and so on. Some of this has already been reflected in the national strategy of waste management in Georgia, and now we're moving forward. We will be working to implement those and ensure that this document is successfully reflected in the national programs. As I mentioned, we piloted recycling programs, and finally we have been engaged in behavior design, centered design approach that we're very proud of, and I'd like to move on to talk about our intervention. Our main aim was to reduce consumption of single-use plastic in offices across Georgia. Why we decided to do this, because looking at the statistics over the last 10 years, in Georgia, the import and production of plastic increased by 71%, and our survey and research showed that over 160,000 tons of plastic waste has been generated, of which 93% has already turned into waste, and the division of that is PET bottles, of course, and plastic bags and other plastic waste. So we were looking at these numbers and thinking of ways that we can work with different institutions to try and reduce that on a policy level, on an institutional level, And our target behavior was to reduce consumption of single-use plastics in offices, in workspaces, so greening workspaces. Our core actors were office management and their employees who have significant influence over the environmental impact. And we worked to select one company with a very strong CSR direction, ERA Insurance Company, who has around 300 employees and is also part of the Vienna Insurance Group and has base offices in Tbilisi and outside of Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. And we basically did the problem behavior actor map to understand where the behavior problems lied and what we wanted to achieve, which was, on an organizational level, reducing plastic procurement, and on an individual level, switching to more sustainable behaviors and reusable alternatives. So we conducted the research and we understood some key insights from our research on the company level and employee level. And we found out that plastic bottles, bags and cups, single-use cups, were the most commonly used items. And the reasons for them were lack of alternative options, which is always an issue in Georgia and also across the world. Comfort and convenience was a trend that came up a lot, and also lack of knowledge for the need to reduce these consumption habits. So working with this data, and we understood a lot more beyond this, we designed, we also understood that people prefer to use bottles to shared cups, and this was reasons that were quite new for us, and we delved into these patterns in a lot of details, understood that hygiene and consumption of water were some of the main reasons why people would make these choices. So in short, we were really trying to understand the motivations and barriers of people, of why they were doing such behavior, and what were the obstacles into switching to another habit. And then we designed targeted solutions, which my colleague Natella will tell you about, so I'll pass the word to her. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, as Nana mentioned, we conducted a research and had some audience insights, and based on that insights we developed some solutions. And first of all, of course, hypothesis, and under this we developed the solutions. And I would like to introduce you the hypothesis we had, and they are three, and they are followings. That if our target company established green procurement that will forbid and reduce single-use and forbid reducing use plastic, then the employees' behavior would change. And the second one was that if reusable alternatives would be more accessible at the company and available in the office, the employees can reduce the use of single-use plastic. And the last one was that if the company set it up a recycling system, then the employees were gonna start recycling at the office, and therefore we developed the solutions to establish plastic waste separation system within the office, to provide the waste audit and green procurement document for the company management, and to provide sustainable alternatives at the ERA Insurance Company, which was our target. And of course we used the new and innovative approach, which is behavior design approach, and the levers, they are 6, and under each we developed the solution and provided the activities. And I would just share some words about this. And the first one is rules and regulations, and under this we had 2 solutions, 2 activities. We provided by our experts, so we hired one and provided green procurement policy and green waste management waste audit document for our target company, and they will use it for the future. And although our target was the office that is in Tbilisi, they, as Nana mentioned, they also have offices outside of the capital in the regions. So this can be used in the whole company and in the regions as well. I would say one of the highlights of our project was that the individual garbage bins were replaced with one on each floor. So it was part of our rules and regulation part. And so as a result, the company could reduce 33,000 units of plastic bags per year. And of course, it's good for their finances as well as for the CSR, so they could strengthen the CSR component by establishing this approach. And to go forward to informational behavioral level, we provided for the ERA employees 3 days long training. So almost 100, if I'm correct, yeah, almost 200 employees of ERA, they were trained and understood what is the plastic waste, why it's important to reduce and to switch to greener alternatives, and it has also a big impact for them. And to move to materials, so each employee was given their individual glass bottle, because while we had the research, PET bottles was the mostly used plastic, single-use plastic at the company, and by replacing them, they could reduce using the PET bottles, and to go to social influences, which is very important when we talk about this behavior. We had the employee competition, and to have the greenest employee at the company. And what was also important is when CEO addressed the employees, because he is kind of role model for the employees, and his advice and suggestions and offerings are of course very important for the staff. And business promotion was a part of this social influence. And when it comes to emotional appeals, we provided informational posters. And here are the posters. Well, this is just two. These are just two, but we had 4, and it's. We think that it's pretty catchy, because we counted the plastic bags they used per year, which is really huge amount. And in the first poster, you can see that it's almost 55,000 plastic bags, and if we stretch them, so this is the same size as space between Tbilisi and Berlin. It makes the employees think about their behavior to use the plastic bags. Here is some picture from the employee competition. And for the business promotion, well, the ERA insurance company has strong CSR, but it could also be an example for the other businesses. So to promote that, we made this video, and we would like to show you. It's in Georgian, however, it has the subtitles in English. So
I'm sorry, I think you have to stop sharing and then reshare and include the sound. Otherwise, we can't hear the sound. Okay, now, no, here, and then, okay, let's try.
Okay. I think we'll have to do without sound.
this is from the training. And this is their office and the CEO of Euro Insurance Company. And in this video, he also addresses public and private sector, how important it is to reduce single-use plastic and to become more social conscious as a private sector. So this video is shared on the social media platforms. So other companies, people are already able to see it and to understand this approach and the problem and the solution as well. And it's also important that the staff of Bureau, the employees who were engaged in this campaign, they are proud to be part of this action. Yeah, that's it. Sorry for this technical issue, but I hope that still it was interesting to see. And as a result of our pilot project, we had several like successes, and these are the followings. That I have already mentioned that they reduced usage of plastic bags, and this amount is 33,000 plastic bag items. And the second highlight would be that the employees started recycling, so we established recycling spot for the plastic waste, and now they are able, if they use the plastic, of course, to go there and recycle and separate the waste. And yeah, the last one would be that overall 250 bottles were provided to each employee working at Tbilisi office, so they could based on our research, the usage of PET bottles was decreased by 21%, and it's also a good point. And what we have learned after all is that challenging assumptions and designing inclusive approaches that minimize harm and incorporates the feedback from the target audience. And the second one would be that designing an inclusive process that increases the ownership by the target group. Yeah, because when we work with some group and we provide, for example, rules and regulations and barriers, of course it's important and it works well, but we also should consider the other stuff, like to be more inclusive and to understand what they want and how they want to engage, because when they have the will, the result is more like it's more effective to include them in the designing process. And the challenges for the sample size of the survey and designing a multi-phased plan that incorporates combination of behavioral levers in a short period of time, but as it was a pilot, yeah, we expected that. So, and to go forward, we already have ideas and plans to scale our project, and we're going to work with Chamber of Commerce and include other private sector representatives to become more environmentally conscious and to initiate a pledging campaign and beat plastic pollution in Georgia at a large scale and set up business awards scheme on plastic waste reduction, and of course to make some media group and make these media channels, TV, social media, print media engage in this issue, and it's under, of course, the social influence as well. And the media group will follow the business awards scheme and report widely on private sector activities and their attempts to reduce pollution. And yeah, we are very excited to go forward. Thanks for your attention, and yeah, here are our contacts, and you can save them and use this for the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I will just share my screen for the very last bit if I can do so. Yep. Great. So we are now going to, I want to encourage everybody to, sorry, I'm working on pulling it up. Encourage everybody to do, to check out some more as we go into this last bit. If you have questions, please start sending them in the chat. Sam, my colleague, is collecting them to facilitate conversation. The last two things I want to highlight: one, if you're interested in learning more about this behavior-centered design from a training perspective, we have trainings coming up. Don't forget, if you are a Prevent Waste Alliance member, you get access still to the self-paced course for free until September 30th. So please make sure to do that if you're a member, to take advantage of that great offering being provided by the Alliance Secretariat. The other that we want to highlight is behavior.rare.org. That is a platform that has a lot of tools and resources, articles, peer review publications, other people who are interested in learning about the role of behavioral and social sciences and design thinking in tackling environmental challenges. So those are the two places I'd recommend to learn more, in addition to contacting both CENN and Common Seas to learn more about their work and talk more about future opportunities. So with that, I will open it up to questions for the final few minutes of our session.